This is my guy here. This is the guy that I would.
There's a my guy here.
Maybe no. This is my segment. I love this guy.
Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. Very excited for today's show. We are going to have a second iteration, a second annual of hopefully a new tradition. We're going to look at some offensive line prospects. And I'm doing this backed by popular demand, but also not just from you guys, but from myself. I'm very excited to do this to help me scout the offensive line prospects for the 2026 draft. Former NFL head coach, assistant coach, NFL player, college quarterback, NFL tight end. You want quarterback, tight end, and then the offensive line coach. So, I don't know if that's good or bad transitions. But anyways, Mike Tice, my dad, former coach. How you doing, Dad? Coach Mike.
I'm doing wonderful, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Excited to see you. I know you are traveling soon, Mom said, because you want some golf bets.
I'm leaving tomorrow. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go back to College Park. Speaking of Maryland quarterback, I was invited to visit with the staff and watch a couple days of practice, and also do a question and answer with the head coach, Michael Lockley, and Loxley. How you say his name? I should know.
Loxley. I think it's
so.
Loxley.
Anyway, yeah,
Loxley.
we're excited. So yeah, they got a full thing. Mike Loxley. And Teddy Monachino, you remember him? He's the defensive coordinator now. He was with us in Jacksonville. And Pep Hamilton's on that staff. You know Pep Hamilton, right? Quarterback guru. So they got some guys. Now we got to see if they got any players.
They have a quarterback. Malik Washington. Not bad. True sophomore. So they at least have that. Those guys are always on my radar. I can't tell you about any young offensive linemen or anything. I don't know if the Terps are trotting out any athletes like Sean Marion or Vernon Davis, when you were a head coach.
No, but it should be a good visit. We'll have a good time and talk some ball, and hopefully I can help some young coach with some pointers, and we'll have some fun.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, Terps. I got my Badger helmet in the back, and I never followed you to the ACC. Well, now it's Big Ten. I mean, we're both Big Ten guys, apparently. That's how this works these days. But no, we are going to be talking offense.
We're both kicking butt in the Big Ten as of late. Not really.
Not really. I've been hearing back from some former Wisconsin guys that got rehired by Wisconsin to maybe help out. So I'm hoping I'm a little bit more optimistic maybe what year 4 of this regime looks like. But we'll see over the Badgers. But we're going to talk offensive line. Speaking of Wisconsin.
You were high on the move, Nate, for the head coach, and now you're
I was high on the move. I think a lot of people are high on the move. Maybe this is an off-air subject, or maybe it was maybe a Wisconsin guy can come on, and Mr. Watt can come on, and maybe we can talk about some of the Badgers these days. But yeah, I was high, not so much in year 4, but we'll give him 4 years, 4 more years.
Yeah,
we'll see. But we're gonna talk line. Talk about the Badgers. No Badgers in this offensive line class, but there's some good ones. Been talking with a bunch of people. There's no consensus in this class outside of maybe Fernando Mendoza as 1-1, and even some people are fighting that. But there's no consensus with this offensive line class. Not to say that there's not good players, just a lot of kind of questions and iffiness and blemishes and just little things that, make maybe there's no-brainers is maybe the best way to put it. You sent me your rankings. I will not spoil them. I tried to order this so that how we're just going to talk about these. This is more the consensus view of these guys, how we go by them one by one. And then you're going to give your thoughts, my thoughts, and I'll try and maybe summarize maybe where you stack these guys up. We looked at offensive tackles and offensive guards. It is a decent center class, but those guys are more late day 2 guys. These guys are more the consensus top 50, top 60, top 70-ish type of tackles and guards. And I use that kind of loosely because some guys might be a tackle converting to guard, but we'll talk about that. And actually, we can maybe start with the first guy. Actually, even before I get into it, do you have a maybe one grand takeaway after watching this kind of group of prospects? Do you have one little thought that about today's college guys, maybe this group overall, this class overall, or just thoughts maybe about today's offensive linemen?
Well, I looked at 15 linemen for this segment, and both guards and tackles. I did not look at any centers. But I will say this, of the 15 players that I looked at, 14 of them I would really be excited to have. And meaning, like, I think some people can't go wrong picking any of these 14. Of course, we stacked them. We'll talk about that. We have them in different orders. The second thing that jumps out at me, there's a lot of big dudes. I'm talking about tall and big. And so that means the average weight on some offensive line and height on some offensive lines in the NFL is going to go up this year, because there's a lot of guys, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", even 6'8", in this group. And it's going to be interesting to see what you think about some and what I think about some.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I don't want to spoil too many things, but Charles and I, a few months ago, Charles McDonald and I, when we were kind of starting to really dive into the line class and really the mock draft started honing in, we started planting 8 offensive linemen in the first round, and I'd be willing to even go up to 9. And I kind of got some side glances about that. And then the combine happened. And then you saw, 6'6", 6'7", and then also just speaks to the rest of this class is that, and I think you believe in this as well. I mean, I know you do, is that, well, if I have a tiebreaker between two positions, I'm going to default to size. I'm going to default to, and I don't just mean that size of the position, I just mean to trenches and to beef. And I think that's what's going to happen with a lot of this class, is that there's more interesting tackles and guards than I think was initially considered. And I think the process has kind of bore that out a little bit, crystallized that a little bit. And I think you actually kind of agree with that a little bit, as you just said it, but also just looking at how you stack these guys up. So we'll jump into it too. The guy that has been either considered the top lineman or the second lineman throughout this whole process, a big recruit from Miami. This is Francis Mauigoa. Finally nailed the name. I know there's no N there, but it's Mauigoa. Off right tackle from Miami, comes in, starts right away. And now I thought he was a very clean technician. I don't want to spoil too much. I might just have you just take the lead here before I get into my thoughts. But at tackle, I have some inclination that you might be even a better guard. But I'm very curious with this first guy, Mauigoa from Miami, how you stacked him up, how you considered him at tackle, where you rank him or just maybe grade him. And then maybe we can get to a stack and a ranking afterwards. But what you just thought of Mauigoa overall as a prospect, Dad?
Well, I liked him a lot for a lot of reasons. Number one, he's a big, thick player that has been coached well, because his head coach is an offensive line guy. And so he does a great job for a big man. He does a great job of getting to the second level. He does a real nice job of moving. He gets a little waist bendy at times because he's such a big man, but he's good. He's good with his sets, nice square sets. And the thing I'd like to say about him, he might not be my top guy, but I will say this: you can't go wrong with a guy like this, because if it doesn't pan out on the right side, I think there's a couple clips, or it could be unbalanced, of him playing guard this season, and he's got some versatility. And there's a couple other guys that you kind of hinted on in this group that have that type of versatility, and this is one of those guys. He competes. He's strong with his hands. He's got good change of direction for a big man. I'm really impressed with this athlete, and he's going to have a great NFL career.
Yeah, I had him 15 on my last big board. I give him he's like right teetering on what I call a hard blue first round grade. You know, a guy that I would take top 10 in every class. He's maybe just outside of that kind of grade, or lottery pick, I should say. Probably warm up a little, maybe ends up about 12, 13, probably on my final big board. I really thought he had his base. You know, he had a balanced base. That was the term I kind of came to. Strong, efficient mover. I thought he was smart. Like, I didn't think he got out of whack too much, at least mentally, with his eyes. Like you said, there's some well-coached aspect. Their offensive line coach is a good coach as well, even outside of Mario Cristobal. I think instant starter, clean technique, size, smarts, overall game kind of leads to that. I totally agree with you. He's earned the right and this is a term I kind of have come to, is earn the right to fail at right tackle. I don't think he could ever bump up to the left side, but I think he could be a great guard because he's not too overly long. He doesn't get out of whack. He can stay tight. There's some stuff where he kind of falls at the end of blocks. You mentioned the waist bending. I think that's kind of what you're speaking to.
There's a little bit of that, Nate, but when you talk about his balance, he plays on his feet, and when you can't play this game anymore on the ground. I mean, they eliminated most of the cut blocks in the league anymore, which is good. Yep. But you better be athletic, you better be quick, and you better be able to have good balance, and he has that. And it's where you look at that, Nate, is on the backside. If these guys can come flat down the line on the backside and cut off, say, a 4-eye or a 3, a wide 3, or even a tighter 3, then they're athletic enough to play at the position and athletic enough to play in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. He was a third-year junior, just a kind of little background here. He measured at 6'5.5", 327. He ran a 5'1" with a 178, 10 and 5/8 hands. I know you like your big mitted guys. 33 1/4 inch arms. So plenty, good enough length for me to stay at tackle. He's not even 21 yet. Can't even legally drink. Just a lot of appeal there. To me, I hate to ever use the term safe, but to me, he's clean. I feel very good. I think you do too. I think even the others I talked to about him, I think we're all on the same page. Not the guy that's the all-world guy, but just real good at a lot of stuff. And that, like you said, that plays in the league and that sticks in the league. So yeah, I won't get into your rankings yet, but I feel pretty good about where we both stand on him. Probably comfortable, very comfortable taking him in the top half of the first round. I think his landing spot has gotten a little interesting to me because if a team truly needs a tackle, even though he's listed at tackle, that's one of those where I'm like, there's maybe some other guys I'd point you towards as opposed to him. But if you are a team that's we just need our best 5 out there, yeah, let's get him on board and get him going and get him starting for us. So let's get to a guy next who I don't think either of us have any inclinations to move to guard. I think he can very much hang out at tackle. That's Monroe Freeling from Georgia. Late riser. For me, if I watched the first half of the year, I didn't even consider him draft. I would say not draftable, but round 3, round 4, didn't make my top 30 at midseason. Then the last couple months of the season, last 6, 7, 8 games, really came along, really developed some play strength. But when you watch Freeling, again, tackle from Georgia, early declare, would you end up thinking about him?
Well, I loved him. There's a lot to like about this young player. There's a lot to like. First of all, he was a very good high school basketball player, could dunk with 2 hands, and that shows his athleticism. His game shows his athleticism. He's really good up to the second level, which takes some niftiness, if you will, and takes some quickness. He's really good on the backside. His pass sets are square and patient. He's learned to use his arms. The arm length. There's a number of guys we're going to talk about that have those long arms to a point where they could be a detriment if they don't use them to their advantage. And the one thing that I can talk from experience, being a long arm guy myself, is if you have quicker hands than the defender and you get your hands in first, you're going to be able to control almost every athlete that you play against because you're going to be able to keep them away from your body. And when you can keep these defenders away from your body, a lot of those moves that they use aren't going to be as effective. So I really like this player. There's a lot, Nate. There's so much I like about him. Excellent change of direction, good lateral movement. Again, excellent pass sets and really quick out of his stance. I mean, this guy's worked hard at his trade. And again, another tribute to the coaches because this guy is very well coached.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's my offensive lineman 1. I'll just even say I had him at 7 on my last big board, and then he'll probably stay around that range. I think he's one of the few guys in this class I consider what I call the hard blue chip. Again, if you told me this 5 months ago, I would have laughed. But his late season film was that good to me and where he came along. Yeah, how do you think about how his ability to recover? I say leading the witness.
I think he's got good recoverability. I think once in a while, all of the bigger guys are going to get caught where they get too much weight over their feet or they get out of balance. and just they got more body to get back in balance. So, but I think he's really worked hard on that, and I think he's worked hard. Like you said, he's really a player that's come on as the season has progressed, and that's a good sign, because he's he's only a junior, I believe, and he's going to have a lot more time to develop, as a number of these players we're getting ready to talk about are going to do. They're going to develop.
Yeah, and it's a pretty young tackle class as well. He's not 22 yet. He's all of 6'7". He measures 6'7" and 3/8, so 6'7.5" essentially. 315, and I think he can put on another 10 pounds easily and be fine. Ran a 4.93. Like, you can just see easy athlete. That's why the term I kept coming back to. And he's not the easy athlete, basketball background. If I hear that tackle, my alarm bells start going a little bit, because I'm like, oh, he's probably soft, probably doesn't know how to use his hands, probably doesn't finish his blocks. And that's what really came along for him, was his run blocking. 10 3/4 hands, 34 3/4 arms. That's that arm length you're talking about. You can see it. Almost has an 85-inch wingspan. Do you weigh wingspan at all? I don't. I never heard you ever talk about it outside maybe running a 2-3 zone in basketball.
It's easier to have a conversation when you're talking about arm length, because that's what everyone uses. The question is, where are they measuring that from? I mean, my arms are longer than all these guys' arms. And I had Mom measure me this morning because I wanted to see what a 34 3/4 inch arm looked like, and mine were longer. So I don't know. But
you're like 35,
let me say this
right?
about me.
They measured you back in the day. I remember. They measured you back in the day. I think you were like 35. I remember a Falcon Scout measured you.
I might have been longer than that. But let me go back to your question on his recoverability. So when I say on my notes, it's kind of a code that helps me put grades on these guys. When I say on my notes and repeat things, and I think I said this to you last year in my notes, then I know I like something about a player and I want it to stick out. I have great COD, great feet, recoverability a number of times, Nate, and I could just look down and count 4 or 5 times when I have that. And when you're talking about a guy that's long, like me, 6'8", and a guy like Freeling, who's 6'7", it takes a while, like I said, to get that body going in the other direction. Yeah. And his athleticism is going to help him. The one thing you worry about with a guy this tall is, can pass rushers get into his body? And like I said earlier, if he learns to throw his hands and beat the defender to the punch, he's going to be just fine, because he's not weak. He's got some strength about him.
Yeah. And I think that's what really came along. It was that he actually had some pop. It wasn't oozy. It wasn't, he didn't just lean on guys or just kind of like.
He's got some suddenness, Nate. He's got some suddenness, and that's good. That's a good thing. I'll say this. If you had any negative about the first player we talked about, that would be it. You would say, he's not really sudden. He's not really, he doesn't have like a burst. This player here, this athlete here, Freeling, he has a burst to the next step, a burst to the change of direction. And you can see the difference in those athletes. And we're getting ready to talk about some other guys down the line that are just explosive as explosive can be.
Yeah, no, I think we're in lockstep. Would you be comfortable taking him in the top 10?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, okay.
Without a doubt, I would.
Very much so.
Yeah,
we have
this guy's
3.
He's gonna play for a long time. I mean, I don't know what his injury report is, but I don't think he's had a whole lot of injuries.
Nope.
Like,
it's just he's been so developmental. Yeah, he even, Charles brought this up because Charles is a Georgia fan. He was running down on he was a punt protector on punt. They had him at 6'7" running down on punt. Like, that's just to speak to his athleticism. So I think we're in lockstep on Freeling. I love him. He's probably one of my favorite players in this draft period. I could say we had him going 3 in our last mock, and I don't think people should bat an eye at that to the Cardinals. So like, that's because I think he's a legit tackle with Pro Bowl upside. That's how I consider him. Let's get to the other athlete that I think you were just referring to. Spencer Fano.
Yeah, he reminds me, one more thing on that, Nate. He reminds me a little bit of your boy that played for the Browns from the Wisconsin all those years.
Joe Thomas?
Yeah.
They move similar. They tested very similar. Joe just didn't have as long as arms. That's, I think, the biggest difference. That's definitely a good, who also went 3, I think, actually, to the Browns. So I kind of, another pick 3. All right, let's get to Spencer Fano, one of 2 Utah tackles in this class. This is one of the players I'm very interested to hear what you think. He's uniquely built, is how I will put it. Doesn't have very long arms, sub 33 inches. Great mover, easy athlete, but not the biggest, kind of narrowed shouldered. He was always listed sub 300. He weighed 310, 311 at the combine, tested very well, ran a 4.91. Same with Freeling. These guys, I mean, we have a lot of good athletes in this class. Big recruit to Utah, started right away as a true freshman at left tackle, moves over to the right side because of his teammate Lomu at left. But I was very curious. This is the guy that I have so many questions of whether he can stay at tackle because I really like him, but he's uniquely built. And that's what I just keep coming back to. So what do you think of Fano? A guy that's pretty high up there in the consensus and amongst all the evaluators.
Yeah, another guy that I love. I love this guy. I like him better than his teammate. There's a lot of versatility there too, Nate, and we spoke about that earlier. But this guy here, he's tenacious. He uses his hands well. He's a tremendous finisher. He plays on his feet. He's got great work ethic throughout the course of the game. Good hands. Every once in a while he'll duck, and get whiffed. I mean, all linemen do that, and they whether they're tired and their technique falls apart, but it's not like buckets. It's, here and there. He's got active and very good feet laterally. He does a nice job with games. But here's another guy, if, like you said earlier, he earned the right to play right tackle in the National Football League, and he's another guy that I don't want to call it a safe pick, but he's another guy that's going to be a first rounder that's going to play for a long time. And is he going to play at right tackle or is he going to play inside? This is a really good player, Nate, and I would love to have him on my roster.
He's also taking some reps at center. Would you, okay, you said earn the right to stay at tackle. Do you prefer him at guard?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's what I was curious. Any reasons?
I don't. There's a couple guys coming up I'd prefer at guard, but not this player. I think he's got enough about him to where he can match the speed of the National Football League and some of these players that, are going to attack him up the field. But I think I think that tenaciousness that he plays with and that, hey, I don't want my guy to beat me, because you can see it, because we're getting ready to talk about his teammate, and we don't see it. So I really like this player. I'm fond of him, and I have him. We won't talk about my rankings, but I have him ranked pretty high.
Yeah, I have him as a top. I had him at 18, I think, on my last board. Probably that's where I'll probably finish with him, 15, 18 range. I have some questions about the length and just, I don't know. I've never seen a tackle built like him. And that's maybe me being an amateur, maybe me just like not having the Rolodex, but that's the one thing. And it's just, it's not the end all be all guy. I've seen so many funkily built guys work really well. And it's just, there's something that I just can't like get me over the top because I see the movement. He tested exactly how I thought he would test. Good hands too. I think that's another thing. You never see his hands kind of getting wide or anything. Probably can't.
No.
He's got short arms anyways. But you never really see him get too wide or anything. I think he's got a nice little pop. But do you like him better than Will Campbell last year?
Well, Will Campbell, I didn't have as high as everybody in the draft, and of course I had Connolly to reflect back as my number one guy.
Yeah. We can talk about that later.
And I did like Campbell. I didn't like him as high as people said, and ultimately I know that I saw Mike came out and said he's staying at tackle a month or so or 2 months ago. But ultimately, if he gives up 29 more pressures in the playoffs, he's going to, and 4 sacks again, he's certainly going to move inside at some point. I like this guy because I like his attitude, and that's going to always play into my grades because when you're short of talent or you have short arms, if you're tenacious and you're a finisher and you have toughness about you and you have grit, that's going to make up for some of that at time. Not all the time, but a lot of the times. And it's a long season. So I can't say I like him better than Will Campbell, Nate, but I certainly like him as much. I like him as much.
Because both guys good athletes, but short-armed. Like Fano, I don't know. They're not exactly the same. I actually think they just play differently as well. And Campbell's on the left side too. I was just curious because they had similar questions, at least to me. And I kind of came to the same conclusion to both, where it's like, I don't prefer him outside, but they could probably hang there and give him a chance there. But I maybe prefer him inside. But you're right. I just, even in my notes with him, I say he's a strong finisher. Every play he treats like it's a challenge. I mean that in a good way. Springy. Tested like that. Springy is the word because he's, like you said, he bounces on his feet, and like you don't really see that with such big guys. Easy to like because that athleticism and movement ability. Let's get to his teammate.
And that tenacity. Tenacity he plays with, Nate. He plays with great tenacity. How comfortable would you be taking? How comfortable or how high would you take him? Like what would be like the comfortable range? I should say. Teens. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it would be in the top 15, but it might be 15 to 20.
Yep. So we seem the same.
Upon, I don't study it as much as you do, but it depends upon if people would rather have one of these, really big, good offensive linemen instead of one of those running backs that they're ranking so high.
Or receivers, I'm sorry, guys, not 7 receivers don't go in the first round. I bet you 8 tackles do. Yeah. Let's get to the other Utah tackle.
Nate, I know we're going to talk about ranking these guys, but I could see, you were talking about ranking the first round offensive lineman. I could see easily 8 of them go in the first round.
I think so too. I really do. I really do think 9 because I think even when we were doing our last mock, I almost got 9 in there because just what the Seahawks are doing. Like they go guard.
You're right. I miscounted because I switched a couple of guys before I sent them to you, and I hand wrote my rankings on my notes. But you're correct, 9. I could see 9 going in the first round.
I mean, they're not published anywhere, so don't you worry. I'm actually, once we get to the guards, I'm actually very curious because there's one guy that, we'll get to. I don't want to spoil. Let's get to Lomu first before we get to that. I can't. We have the same brain, so we're just gonna distract each other. Our ADD brains just gonna distract each other. Let's get Jack, my son, in here, and we'll just all 3 of us doing the same thing with the same brain.
This will be a 3-hour show. We've got a 3-hour show talking about 15 offensive linemen.
No, I think we'd only cover 4 before we get distracted on the next thing. Oh, yeah. Did you see that? Oh, yeah. Look at that. Let's get to Caleb Lomu, Utah teammate, another big recruit, same class as his teammate Fano. He redshirted, then played 2 years. Fano was a left tackle his true freshman year, which is significant. Bumps over to the right side. And then Lomu ends up being the left tackle. Also, another young tackle in this class. Again, I can't emphasize that enough. All these guys are younger than 22. That we've talked about so far. That's significant. Another guy coming out after his 3rd year. He just redshirted. I am personally a pretty big fan of his, while acknowledging what he needs to get better at, because I think he's a good athlete. He's got enough length. He 4'9", 940. He was 6'6", 313, 33 3/4 inch arms. Decent wingspan as well, in case if you're into that. I thought easy mover. Didn't always get to see maybe the strength of his game in that Utah offense with that quarterback that was running around everywhere, Dampier. So I kind of maybe just didn't get to see him where I almost want to see him more of a traditional professional offense, or maybe get to like him a little bit more. But I'm curious, you said you're a little cooler on him, and I acknowledge that he does have to improve his play strength, but why are you a little cooler on him, even though if you might like him a little bit?
Well, my opinion is he should have stayed in for another year because somebody has to teach him how to finish. His biggest flaw is something that concerns you when you're trying to win games and you have a long, long season like the NFL. And I know they have a long season in college football nowadays with the playoffs, but there's not that great. For a smooth athlete, there's not that great explosiveness or suddenness. Certainly, there's not that great desire to stay with your defender longer than it takes because he spends a lot of time watching defenders run to the football. And I just think there's there's some improvement needed with this player. So I dinged him a little bit and put him down. I put him down in the late first, early second. I don't know if I don't mean to mess up your ranking stuff because of that. And as a coach, that scares me when I have notes that say, desire, question mark, question mark. When I start talking about the athleticism, it jumps out all over the board. Change of direction, can sink his hips, plays a bit tall, but all tall guys play a bit tall, duh. Good COD, uses his hands, and then I go lacks urgency. Those kind of comments when I look at good balance. So as soon as we get to the athleticism stuff, he shines. But when you start talking about that desire to play football, not really aggressive. And then I come right back the next couple of plays and go, not aggressive. So that scares me, and that scares me to bump him down later because of that. But he has, like another player we're going to talk about in a minute, I think, he has some upside to him because he's young. And someone's got to get him and teach him that, okay, you got everything, man. You got it all, but you got to do more. You got to grit your teeth a little bit. So he's probably a great kid. I mean, but you could see that in his play. So somebody's got to teach him to be a little bit more nasty, and I think he'll make a big jump in the National Football League. And if he doesn't, he'll have, some struggles.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Do you think how would you compare him to Jake Matthews? I don't think they're 1-to-1, but maybe Jake was such a light athlete, but maybe had some finish stuff that you maybe kind of got with him on. You draft him with the Falcons.
I think
Jake
there's
Matthews,
a little more sorry, Nate. Yeah, there's a little more suddenness to Jake. Jake was a little more suddenness and had a little bit more burst to his movements, where this athlete is a different type of athlete. He's smooth, and I didn't do enough research to even know if he played basketball in high school or what, but he certainly looks like he could have been a basketball player and possibly played a different position in high school than offensive line. I didn't research him that hard, but I will say this, he has the tools, but he's got to change his mantra. He's got to change his mindset. And if he does that, his game will take a big jump.
I don't think he actually even thought that he would be this football thing actually worked out for me. Like you know what I mean? Like I think I think there's some background on this, and I do think that you're correct in some of it. Like he wrestled, he kind of did some other things. He played some basketball growing up. I think all of a sudden he was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at offensive line. Maybe I should try this stuff. Like, kind of like as opposed to a kid at 9 years old who was pancaking guys, double black striper, doing all that, can't touch the football and all that. And I do think that that's maybe a part of it. So yeah, even Dane Brugler came from The Athletic, came out with the Beast today, and this is in his write-up, said he immediately didn't take football seriously as a long-term option until he started getting recruited following his sophomore year. He also then started to work out with offensive line trainers, which take it as you will. So I do think that that's some of it, where it's that he's learning to be an offensive lineman, if that makes sense, learning to be a football player, as opposed to a guy that this is what I've been born to do and what I want to do my entire life. And I'm going to be this gritty, glass eater. I do understand the flaws with him. Like I understand maybe I'm doing the glass half full projection where it's like, he can get stronger. I think finish is that's kind of an infectious thing. And I'm never going to project a guy gets better at that. Some guys get worse at that in the NFL, I think, because they just get tired going against the good athletes. So I can't project that, but I do think he can improve the strength with the youth, the frame that he has. I do like you bringing up the want to and desire, because you said this once, and I think you were talking to tight ends, and you said, blocking sucks. You're like, blocking hurts, and it should hurt. But you're going to have to do it 50, 60 times a game, and then 16 games a year, 17 games a year. But I remember you saying that as a point to a tight end. You're like, it sucks. I know it sucks, but you have to do it.
Yeah. Well, most of the time when you make a good block, it hurts. If you lead with your head, your headbutt, your neck hurts. And if you lead with your hands, your hands hurt. So, and if you lead with your forearm and elbow hurt. So it does suck and it does hurt. And then a lot of times you're 100% know you had a great block when after the play your eyes are watering. So that's one thing. If you got watery eyes, that means you had a great block.
This means you sustained a little bit. I'm very, very curious to get to the next guy because I could see you going either way. I know you already know your answer, but I could see you going either way with this guy. This is Caden Proctor, offensive lineman from Alabama, left tackle from Alabama, originally from Iowa, Des Moines, goes to Alabama, then wants to transfer to Iowa. He's there for like 2 weeks, then transferred to Iowa, and then transferred back to Alabama, which is a whole thing. A behemoth. Was listed around 360. He ended up weighing 351, I believe, at the combine. And then his pro day, that weight came right back on. 352 at the combine. The pro day was 358. So I'm going to assume this is a 360 pounder. Now, you have had, I can get into the history of big guys, which I will probably after your point here, but I do want to state this. You've had history of drafting big tackles. You had Corey Stringer, who weighed over 350. And then you also had Brian McKinney at 360 pounds, which was your first round pick with the Vikings in 2002. Now, in the history, I'll get into the history in a sec, but would you end up thinking of Proctor at left tackle for Alabama and his just ginormous size?
You know, he's an athlete that he befuddles me a little bit. He's big, he's massive, he's hard to get around. He's got good balance. He moves good. They put him out on wide receiver screens. He can adjust at times because he's so big. And like we talked earlier, we don't have to say it again, but, you know, it takes a lot of time to move a bigger body. So changing direction doesn't get you there as rapidly as a smaller, say, guard. And when we say smaller, I mean, you know, like 6'4" and not 6'7", and 310 and not 350. So he's a big man. He has good technique. My fear with him and with other big players like that is those really explosive pass rushers in the National Football League. If you're out there on the backside and you're by yourself and it's empty and you're not getting any chip help and it's on the road and these guys are elite, like, you know, that was Iowa they showed him playing against,
every
but
team.
Let's say Pittsburgh. Let's play Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. And so can he hold up in a long game? Does he have the stamina? Because I see him being big, but I don't see him being explosive. I see him getting his mitts on people, but I don't see him throwing his mitts at people. So he could be. I don't want to say nice, but he could be more violent. And I'd like to, again, just like the player we talked about a second ago, Lamu is, you know, show me that explosiveness, that tenaciousness, that violence that you need to play the game with at a high level against the best athletes in football in the National Football League. And that concerns me. With that said, I like him, but I don't like him. I like him later in the draft in the first round or in the early second. And I know probably people have him higher than that, but the fear of, you know, the technique's fine, but there's nothing with a man that big and athletic. There should be some type of dominant trait that I wrote down here besides saying he's big and he's hard to get. Okay, that's great. But what if the guy you're playing with dekes you and then clubs you and goes outside and you land on your chin and the quarterback gets hit in the back of the head? That's my fear. And I think it's based on my notes and the teams I looked at. You know, I watched them against Thomas from A&M, right? Is that where Thomas is? No, where's Thomas?
Cassius Howell there.
I got to put my glasses on.
Oh, Thomas is from Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Yeah, I had to get my glasses. Sorry. So, you know, he did a good job against him. He didn't get his lunch eaten, but then again, Thomas wasn't on him all game. So, he's an interesting prospect, to be honest with you. There's a point in the draft where he's going to be worth taking a shot at. And
you got to take
do you take him when you get him and move him to right tackle and just say, here's our right tackle for a decade because of his size? And I mean, you know, that's where I had my big guys. Well, not like Brian, but Corey. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thought of him. But I like him. Like I said, I like 14 guys.
No, I liked him too. I just couldn't get over the top with him because I totally agree with you where I just didn't feel dominance. And I know that's mean and going on not mean, but going on a sliding scale. Like, why am I not bringing it up for other guys? Well, you're 350, 360. Like, that's how you have to win. I better see some guys getting moved at the point. And I didn't ever see that kind of like his Alabama brethren, JC Latham, who's with the Titans right now. I at least on his run game in college, guys were getting moved 4 or 5 yards. And again, you're not helmet scouting. You don't want to go 1-to-1, but that's the last big behemoth guy that I considered high up here. And he just happened to be an Alabama tackle. I did think I agree with you. I even said, despite being so large, I thought his balance and footwork was pretty dang good, but he can get high because he's big. And he gets slow out of stance against speedier guys. And guess what? The NFL, every team has speedy guys.
Every team.
And that's what.
And here's another point to the violence of the game. A guy that big, when he comes down on a deuce block where you double team up to the linebacker, if people don't know what that means, I'd like to see that down launched. And take out another body on the way of being launched through the air. But not just lean on them and place, I call it placing, not just place your hands on them, but, remove this guy. And he has the size and the ability to do it, but I don't see that on tape.
I agree. And it's not that he's soft or anything. It's just he doesn't have that over-the-topness to him. But we're on the same page. I had him in my 20s on my last big board. That's probably where I'll end up being. I think we kind of rank him the same. That's the thing is this whole draft class is guys that I'll be like, yeah, he's a day 2 guy, and they end up in my 20s just because the rest of the class is like this. But just even talking about so people know, so I'm going to assume Proctor weighs 360, and whether that's fair or not, I think he is. There's only been 10 offensive linemen drafted since 1970. You were what, in 6th grade in 1970? That's when the merger of the AFL and NFL happened, in case anyone wants to know. But so there's been 10 offensive linemen since 1970 drafted that have been 360 pounds or more listed. You drafted 2 of them. But first rounders, we got Aaron Gibson, Wisconsin, drafted 27th overall in 1999. He only started 34 games, considered a bust. He was like 400 pounds. There's legendary stories about him at Madison that his conditioning was he just had to walk around the field. That was his conditioning. Mike Williams, if you remember him, in Texas, 2002, your first year as a head coach. He started 56 games. He went 4th overall, considered kind of a bust. They tried to move him to guard. Then Bryant McKinney, you drafted 7th overall, 2002, same draft class, 162 games started, was never an elite, but like a good starter for a while. Mekhi Becton, the Jets drafted 11th overall from Louisville, moved to guard for the Eagles and Chargers, 59 games started in 2020. And then the others outside the first round, we got Langston Walker, 2002, started drafted in the 2nd round. We had Tredarin Dorsey, 7th round. He only started 3 games. Trent Brown, who's still in the league. He was a 7th rounder. He started over 100 games so far. Jordan Mailata with the Eagles, 7th rounder, international guy, never played college football, 85 games. Daniel Falale, 4th rounder, 35 games started. He just signed with the Giants. He moved to guard. DeJuan Jones, who's now with the Browns at left tackle, he was a 4th rounder. But what I'm saying, not a lot of guys in the history of time have been this big and maybe even had sustained success. I would say, Big K was listed at 355. You got Orlando Brown Sr., Zeus, remember him with the flag. You got Michael Onwenu with the Patriots right now. Just not a lot of guys of this size. And that's an outlier. Like too big can be an outlier too, as well as too small. And there's some historical stuff here that's like I kind of some caveat emptor, some buyer beware, I think, with him. And I think you and I kind of see that the same way. Let's get to another offensive tackle. Weird. That's what we're talking about today. Blake Miller from Clemson started like a billion games at Clemson, never missed time, just started game after game after game. Clean technician, another tall player, 6'7", 6'6" and 6'8", 317, ran well. 5 flat, essentially, 34 3/8 arms. A lot to like here. A lot of games started. Played exclusively right side, though, at right tackle at Clemson. And Clemson's offense, they haven't had really any offensive lineman drafted in years. Charles and I were trying to think of him. John Simpson, who's with the Ravens now, is one, but this has not really been a factory for offensive linemen, mostly because of that offense. But what do you think about Blake Miller, Dad? How you rank him? Just what are the thoughts on him?
I like him, Nate. I like his style of play. I like his size. I think he's going to be an excellent pro. He's got really good quickness. He gets out of his stance like a shotgun. He's got great foot fire on contact in the run game. That means he moves his feet on contact. He doesn't block two and then through. He's got great foot fire. He's aggressive. He's quick. Gets a little high like all these tall guys, but I think in every single guy 6'6" and above, I say gets a little high at times, and that just happens. My thing that I don't like about him is a technique thing, and it's because the way he's been taught. But I'm a vertical set guy, so anytime I see someone vertically set, I'm going to fall in love with him, i.e. Freeling from Georgia. But he's a 45-degree set guy, which is no big deal, and because that's a way to win, and that's the way you teach it. It's another way. Also, he's a fork lifter, so that means he comes up from underneath. And he's got those big, long 34-inch arms, and I think the forklifting thing is going to give him a little bit of trouble in the NFL with some of these guys that use their hands so well. I think they're going to knock him down, but that's just me talking. He's got good feet to the second level, really good change of direction. I like this player, Nate. I like him a lot. My notes go on and on and on and on. Again, good COD, good lateral, really good athlete. That, like you said, Nate's played a lot of football, and it shows. I mean, he does this move where he slaps hands down and then resets. He's a good football player. I think he's going to be a good prospect for somebody, and somebody's going to be happy for. And he's obviously played a lot of ball. I don't know if he's had any injuries. I don't get to go that deep, but I think that this guy could be a clean pick for somebody and play a long time for some football team.
He's a guy that really grew on me. As more I watched him. I mean, also the tools were maybe even a little better than I was anticipating. I thought he'd be a solid size, all that. He had a good length and everything because he's like long torsoed too. But, he's long armed and long torsoed. You usually don't get that combo. I described him as a brisk mover. He's a brisk mover. He's just so clean with some stuff. I thought that some of the hand placement stuff could get a little wide. I thought you could tighten that a little bit, but he can recover. Like he can, I'm wide, and then kind of just work his hands back in at times, not all the time, but better than I anticipated. A guy that I'm very comfortable taking in the back half of the first round. I think after pick 18, really pick 17, I think he's live. I just really like him. I don't think he has like all pro, all world potential, but I think this is a good starter for a while for somebody. So again, I think there's another guy we're in lockstep with. Just a guy, I don't know, a guy that I didn't think I would like as much as I did. He's been on my radar for a while. I think I graded him last year too.
Yeah, I like him. I do have a comment there at the bottom that his hands are outside often, and it's something he's going to learn if he doesn't get his hands tight. Whether he's a forklifter or not, if he doesn't get his hands tight, he's going to struggle. You can work on that. That's not like all of a sudden saying, "Hey, you don't bend your hip, your waist bender, and you don't bend your knees. All right, now you got to fix it." Well, if he can't bend his knees, that means he's not a very good athlete. So I don't think he can fix that.
If he could do it, then he would do it.
Then he would do it, right?
If you do you think if he's better in a certain type of scheme? I actually liked him in zone, like maybe a Shanahan Kubiak guy, or would you like him, like, because you're more of a gap at, you do everything, but you like your pullers, you like your guys' gap scheme.
So as far as his athleticism and pulling, I do have in here, Nate, that he did pull and he can run, and they do pull him with some tackle pulls to the open side.
Tackle pulls.
And in the Penn State game a number of different times. And I thought he did a good job with it, which shows his athleticism. I always look on those poles. If somebody's in your way and you bubble and get around them and still get your shoulders squared and come downfield and make your block, that shows me enough niftiness that you're going to be able to use him in a gap scheme, and he doesn't have to just play in a zone scheme. Of course, the gap schemes are going by the wayside. Everybody's zone now, so he does have the ability to get to the second level.
You'll be happy to hear gap schemes coming back, baby.
Yeah, I'll be real happy to hear
that. No, that's what Fano does so well. I'm glad you mentioned that. Sifting through the muck, maybe. Good way to put it. Like, I think that was Fano's best thing as a puller. He was really good at finding his path, when he had to do it.
And sometimes there's some trash there. You got to bubble around, but you still got to be nifty enough to not just run into it every time and then give your offense a -1 head count because you ran into someone else's guy because you're not nifty. And so I used to always say, don't make this a -1 head count, would you? Go get your guy. Don't run into someone else's guy.
We're trying to make this even. We're already down 1 with a quarterback not doing anything. We'll get to one last tackle, and then I'll stack these guys up. I'm also telling the producer that one last tackle, and then we'll get to the guards and more maybe clear day 2 guy tackles as well. But then we'll stack maybe the guys that we're talking about right now. The last guy, another player I'm very excited to talk to you about because, spoilers, this is a guy I've become very fond of. Especially just knowing his background, and maybe the film surprised me with how polished it was. But this is Max Ihanachor. I'm going to get this name right by the time he gets drafted, as Charles just calls him Nacho, from Arizona State. Just a little background: did not play high school football at all. Was a soccer and basketball player from Nigeria. Goes JUCO to East Los Angeles College, and then goes to Arizona State after that. Follows the line coach. He was going to go to Fresno. Fresno coach goes to Arizona State, follows him there. Senior Bowl riser, great athlete, tested great at the combine. Almost 6'6", 6'5", and 7/8, 321. He ran a 4.9 140, 9-inch hands, not the biggest hands, 33 and 7/8 arm length. So he does have long arms. What did you think of him? I'm very, very curious.
Well, this is my guy here. This is the guy that I would.
There's a maybe guy love, here.
Maybe no. This is my segment. I love this guy, and I'm going to tell you why I love this guy. He's the most explosive guy of all the ones we talked about so far. He's explosive. You talk about pulling; they pull him too. Explosive, nifty, aggressive, finisher. There's a negative in the run game where he hasn't learned to play with his feet in the ground. As an offensive lineman in the run game, you got to have your feet, your heels in the ground. He's up on his tippy toes. Man, that is so easy to fix with an athlete. And also that shows his athleticism because he's trying to block people up on his toes. It's really hard to block guys in the run game when you're on your toes. You want to have your heels and your balls of your feet in the ground. He's up on his toes. He's still blocking guys. So he's so raw still. But the finish and the balance, and I'm just reading my notes, and how he is in space on wide receiver screens, and the ability to change direction on the second level on combination blocks and or zone. I really like this player a lot. You're going to be surprised where I have him ranked. I don't have number 1, but I got him pretty high. So this is a guy worth taking a stab at in the first round. And at the back end of this thing, if you don't screw up what somebody has taught him, and God, thanks for the coaches in college that have brought this kid along, this kid can be a beast. A beast.
Yes. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Dad. This is him and Freeling are the guys that got me going more than anybody. And they were the 2 late risers, which makes it so much more fun. I had him at 11 on my overall on my last big board. I'm comfortable taking them top 20. I'm comfortable going even higher. I know guys in the league do like having a good Senior Bowl helps. It's kind of like checks that box for a lot of people mentally. But even before that, very bullish on him. Like you said, I think some of the run game stuff is so encouraging because he knows how to finish. You know, he's not like, I wouldn't call him nasty, but he knows how to finish, and then he can stay latched on to guys, even though some stuff is just wild horse stuff. And I think that's so encouraging because it's real film. I don't have to project much here. I don't think it's theory. Like there's so many athlete guys that get drafted, and you know this, you pull your hair about, well, you did pull your hair about it, was that I thought that he, like, the film was real. Like it's real tackle play. Like there's more polish here. That's what I kept saying. Like his polish surprised me and his refinement surprised me for a guy that could easily just be considered a project. Like he just has the demeanor that's right. He's a great athlete. He's got great. Did you watch the Texas Tech game by chance?
I watched Iowa State and Arizona. I did not watch Texas Tech.
Okay, Arizona too.
I don't know if I had access to that. Hey, so let me just say this though. The first thing I would do with this guy when I got him in the minicamp, I'd move him to left tackle.
Okay.
I think he could play left tackle, and I would certainly do that sooner than later. Now, unless I have a left tackle. But if I don't have a left tackle, you're looking at him on the screen there on your graphics. There he is right there, because that's the type of athlete he is, where he could be over there by himself taking care of business. We could worry about him being up on the toes in the run game. We'll take care of that later. But if you can protect the backside of the quarterback, and I think he has that type of athletic ability, recoverability, change of direction, lateral movement. It's easier to learn pass protection than it is to learn the run block. Okay. And so, you know, in pass protection, especially if you're a basketball player, all you do is tell, hey, you know how to box somebody out? Yeah. I said, okay, turn around and face them and don't let them get to the quarterback. Box them out.
Do that way.
But you don't have to look at him from the back of your head. You get to face him. So when you have an athlete and you tell them, use your arms and kick off the line, stay square, or however they teach the set at each program, and don't let this guy around, this guy has that type of ability.
I'm very encouraged to hear that, because that's how I view him as well. I think it's relatively easy for him. It looks easy for him. And you kept mentioning the lack of twitch with maybe some guys. He's big and has twitch, and he kind of knows what he's doing naturally. I don't know. It's easy to buy into this guy. Yes.
He has, what I used to call this is, you don't see it a lot, but he has it. It's explosive lateral movement. That means he could get from where he's at to 2.5, 3 yards away in a snap of a finger. That's how explosive he is laterally. He has it. I mean, just like the picture you just showed. I mean, he's got the whole thing. He's got the athleticism. He's got the body. He's got the talent, and it looks like he knows what he's doing, because he's out there communicating. They're playing him in different positions. I think I saw him come in motion one time, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got some classroom to him too. So he's going to be able to learn.
I'm encouraged to hear that. All right, for this group of guys, and this is not including some guards we're going to talk about after the break, and maybe a couple other kind of more day two considered guys, how would you stack up this group that we just talked about? So again, to remind people, we have Francis Mauigoa, Monroe Freeling, Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, Caden Proctor, Blake Miller, and Max Ihanachor.
I would go Freeling number one. I would go Mauigoa number two, however you say that.
If everyone wants to know why I struggle with names, this is my dad. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah, I go Fano number three. I would go Max number four. I would go Blake Miller number five, which is probably a surprise to people. I would go Caleb Lomu number
Caden
six.
Proctor. Oh, Lomu,
I would go Caleb Celeb Lomu number six. I would go Proctor number seven.
Okay.
And then I have
again, you mentioned. Then you have another group that we're going to talk about.
We'll talk about in a little bit, and then maybe even a question for you about somebody. and an injury that I see them playing with. You might know more than I know. All right.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah, I went this little group here, little relative term. Freeling's my one. Mauigoa's two, but he's kind of his own thing. Like how I consider him, because I think more of a guard projection, at least for me. But I would go Freeling, Ihanachor / Mauigoa. That's what that group. And then I have Lomu next, just because I'm glad that we got to talk about that. But him and Fano are right next to each other. I always have them next to each other on my board because it's just like, I really like Fano. It's just I have more tackle questions, maybe you do. And then I have Miller and then Proctor. And then Proctor, just so kind of give people a frame of reference, I have in my top 30, but probably at the back end of that. My grade for him is a day 2 grade, but that's just how the big boards go. And I give ties, if I have the same grade for guys, ties go to offensive linemen and defensive linemen.
I have Proctor as a late 1, early 2. Well, how do you have Max?
Oh, I have
Where do you have Max stacked? Huh?
I have a true first round grade on him. He's 11 overall on my big board. So he's freeway. He's 2. If I just go tackles only, he's 2.
Yeah.
Because I have Mauigoa as his own thing. It's kind of like there too, like 2, 3. It's kind of hard for me to like explain that without having like a horizontal visual.
Yeah. No, I saw
my own
you,
beautiful mind.
I saw you who you had number 1 on your site, on your Yahoo Sports site. So I knew we had the same guy. I was hoping we didn't, but we did. So
yeah, we did. Right. I'm actually glad to hear that because I actually want. That's the thing. I keep having people on, and I want people to kind of cool down my own takes. Maybe the Lomu right there, that's a good one. But I have a quarterback show with Derek Klassen. I'm like, oh yeah, I have Nuts QB2, and he's like, yeah, same. I'm like, oh, and I have the running back show, and I have Connor Rogers on. I'm like, hey, I have Jonah Coleman at 2. No one else. He's like, yeah, I do too. And I'm like, God, people are confirming my priors with these guys, but we're gonna get back. Well, first we're gonna take a break. We'll get to some more guards and some more tackles, or we should talk guards and more tackles, I should say, after the break. We'll get to that. But first, after this break, Matt Harmon joins me to talk about a few of the prospects who improved their draft stock the most with their pro day performances. We look at that through the lens of next-gen stats and some IQ. See you guys in a sec. It's time for NFL IQ Insights powered by Amazon Quick. From draft targets to trade scenarios, NFL IQ brings the 2026 NFL Draft to life with real-time data. The built-in AI assistant lets you ask who your team should pick. Backed by next-gen stats, visit NFL.com/IQ. Okay, Matt Harmon. We asked NFL's IQ AI assistant for the biggest draft combine and pro day risers among the 2026 prospects. And here is who we got. Number 1, Emmett Johnson, running back from Nebraska, knocked off over half a second on his 40 time at his pro day. He's now in the threshold of elite territory for running backs as far as speed. Should help his draft stock a lot. Matt, what do you think about Emmett Johnson? What do you think about his 40 time improving as well?
Yeah, he's a really interesting back. I don't know what you think about him, but I think he's somebody who, when he can get to that second level, I think he's got something to him. You know, and it's funny, I guess this matches with the 40 time, right? It's like, it's getting there is sometimes the question. So you actually seeing him improve in that, I think that was something he probably wanted to show scouts and evaluators is, hey, like, I have the juice to get myself to that second level where he's a pretty good tackle breaker. Like, he is pretty decisive in the open field. So I think he probably profiles as certainly a committee back, at least to start his career. Yeah. But I think this sneaky was kind of an important box for him to check in the long list of like, hey, this is what I'm trying to show people before the NFL draft.
If how a player wins their position is different from player to player. You know, it doesn't matter the position. It could be a defensive end, it could be a receiver. For running back, for at least for Johnson, was watching him in college because he's not the biggest. Was all right, but he can take runs to the house, and he was super productive at Nebraska. But then he didn't test like that athlete, and that to me is like, well, you have to win this way, and you're not testing that way. Yeah. So the fact that he can as you said, getting there, the fact that he can attain at least at some point, even if it's good circumstances, can at least show that speed that's how he's going to have to win at the NFL level. That's at least a little more encouraging. Because I would say it was that 40 time. I know it's not the end all be all for all positions, but for him, that kind of knocked him in my eyes because it was like, well, this is how you have to be productive in the NFL. So a lot more encouraging to at least see him get that sub 4 or 5 time, even without the great size that he has. Because I agree with you. There's stuff that where him taken to the house is really appealing. I consider him kind of an early day 3 running back, which is a lot of these backs in this class. That's, round 4, I'd be very comfortable with Johnson, but at least this is a little bit more definitive to me where he can maybe bump up a little bit. If some team takes him late 3rd, it's not a great running back class, a little bit more understandable, at least to me. Getting on to the next guy who probably going to get drafted a lot higher than round 4 or early day 3, probably on round 1 and day 1 in Pittsburgh. That's Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon. He posted a 4.39 40 at 241 pounds at the combine, got a 99 athleticism score from NGS. He's ranked 14th on Daniel Jeremiah's board from NFL.com. He is ranked as a top 20 player on my big board at Yahoo.com. But you've watched pass catchers. Sometimes you don't have to chart the tight ends, Matt Harmon, but maybe a little glimpses of Kenyon Sadiq that you have seen, or when you have studied him. What do you think about this? Does this time match what you saw, or is this an appealing aspect of Sadiq?
Yeah, he's obviously a big time athlete, even watching him a little bit after the combine, because if that performance at the combine didn't demand your attention, I don't know what would have. He is clearly a really impressive specimen. I think he's not quite, in the same range as some of the tight ends we saw last year in terms of just true receiving ability, routes, and kind of things of that nature. But he's a very impressive specimen that I think the right coaching staff will get a lot out of him. And it's funny seeing him ranked as the 14th player on DJ's big board. I have seen a lot of people recently start to connect him to the Ravens at pick 14 this year. Mm-hmm. I think that, I don't know where he's at in you and Charles's, mock 25.0 or whatever you guys are on at this point. But I kind of dig that from I don't think he's similar to Colson Loveland. Colson Loveland obviously was like it was like a special tight end prospect, but totally different beast. But the way that they got Kenyon Sadiq, on some of those like movement blocks where they got Colson Loveland on some of those more like movement blocks. And I think Loveland's got a higher ceiling as an inline blocker, but slicing across the formation more, again, like moving across things and like using him as a blocker there. He pops to me in that regard, and I think his strength as a player probably will show up better as a blocker in that regard than an inline player. So I think there's a very fascinating guy, and I do think the athleticism shows up on tape. I just think there's other questions to answer with him as a long-time starting tight end in the league.
Yeah, like Loveland could do a lot. He can split out, be isolated there, and Sadiq has to be used more. There's some specificity, has to be used in a specific way.
Yes,
because I butcher the English language. But so I had him 16 on my last big board. So me and DJ have him in the same spot. Awesome. No, he had him 14. So I had him 16. Actually, I thought it was gonna be the high guy. We had him on our last mock version 28. I think we had him going to Carolina at 19. This is the range we've had him going to. One time we had him going to the Rams, just a little bit higher with their first pick, or their only first round pick now. But this is the range, I think, the comfort range for Sadiq. And this is this draft class. A lot of guys with blemishes. I agree with you that there's some appealing aspects with his athleticism. He has a want to as a blocker, which isn't going to show up in this testing, but it matters for the tight end position. A guy that I compared Sadiq to, I said he's somewhere on the Vernon Davis to Tommy Tremble spectrum. And if he goes to the Panthers, he's essentially replacing Tommy Tremble. So they actually had shown that they can use this type of player. And I like their other tight end, Mitchell Evans. So I'm very comfortable taking him in the top 20, understanding that tight ends do take time, and understanding he's not maybe, even if he does work out, he's not going to play like a Tucker Kraft or a Trey McBride. He's going to be kind of his own thing, but that's a very dynamic player and can create explosives for an offense with the ball in his hands. And that's very, very appealing. He plays like a guy that ran a 4.39 40 at the combine. Like that's exactly the speed that he indicates and the athleticism that he indicates. Let's get on to number 3 here. Spencer Fano, offensive tackle from Utah, one of 2 Utah tackles that might go in the first round or likely to go early in this draft. Fano ran a 4.91 40 at 311 pounds at the combine, tied for second among all offensive linemen. Now, arm length didn't really come in that high at the combine, but maybe he got stretched out a little bit, like Bart Simpson trying to get that actor role. Stretch him out a little bit to get that pro day arm length bump. But he posted a 93 athleticism score according to Next Gen Stats. He had great jumping numbers, 32-inch vert, 9.3 broad, all just good check marks to see out of a guy that wins with his athleticism. Had good on-field drills. Again, stuff you want to see from a guy whose calling card is his athleticism and movement ability. But I know you get pigeonholed as a receiver guy, but let's talk about an offensive tackle here, Matt Harmon. Really a guy that I consider maybe best bumping into the inside, but maybe when you checked out Fano, what do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, the athleticism obviously is very clear with him, and really good mover. I also like that he did the center drills at the combine, just kind of showing like, hey, we talked about this with Will Campbell last year, somebody that I think, to use your phrase, had earned the right to fail at left tackle based on how he played at college, kind of weighing the length concerns, and he would be like a physical outlier at the position. And I already like Spencer Fano essentially being like, hey, if I flop out here, here's another option, right? To potentially be a big time center in a league that I think that positional value is going up. Clearly, after the Tyler Linderbaum contract, people are going to be paying more for centers going forward. So I like his forward thinking there in that regard. But just from an offensive line standpoint, I think he's got a lot of power. I think he moves really well. So certainly somebody that in the top 10 of this draft with a lot of offensive line needy teams, he could maybe be one of those like, all right, if we've got a left tackle solidified here, maybe we do think about him as a high tier guard. So I really like him a lot. I think he's a good prospect, and everything that we've seen from the workouts really, I think, just sort of solidifies who he is on film.
Yeah, I think at worst case, Fano is going to be Cody Mock, who is a day 2 guard. Tackle, now a guard for the Bucks. They're built the same, arm length the same, athleticism high in athletes. That's the thing with Fano, is that at tackle I have more questions, but I'm like, well, at guard he's gonna be great, and at center I think he can be a dynamite center, because he's such a good mover, can pull, screen stuff will be really good. But the fact that he can, like you said, earn the right, but the fact that he has some experience at both tackle spots, he was the left tackle and then bumped over to right tackle when his teammate Caleb Lomu came in. The fact that he can be a best 5 enabler, as I'll put it. Guys that remind me, they're not the same type of player, but maybe the same type of archetype as Graham Barton, who's also with the Bucks as well. 2 Bucks offensive linemen, who played left tackle and center in college. Had to play tackle in a pinch even last year for the Bucks. Best as a center, but could play guard, could probably hold up at right tackle. But these type of guys, Campbell's included here, best 5 enabler. Maybe not the idealistic tackle, but he can hold up. But I do think that he could be a dynamite guard or a dynamite center, which in this draft class, that's going pretty early. And I think the league really likes him. And the fact that, again, that his whole shtick is being a good athlete and moving like this, and then he backs it up with that kind of performance at the combine and weighing a little heavier. He was listed sub 300 throughout his career in college. And so even if he's a light 300, a light 300. that is actually another part of this appeal, and it actually shows up with the combine testing with these with the insights that we're getting here from NGS. So we're going to group these next 2 guys together. 2 wide receivers. We have Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mizzou and Chase Roberts from BYU. Coleman improved his 40 time from 4.49 to 4.41, almost a full second improvement. Got some of that home cooking. This kind of speed really helps. Again, when you want your athletic guys to be athletic. And then Roberts also shaved off a lot of time here, going from a 4.64, which is a red flag territory to 4.56, which is much more tolerable. But with these 2, Coleman, Roberts, what'd you think of him as my, speed dial receiver expert that we got here? So what'd you think about Coleman and Roberts when you have been grinding through these receivers, Matt Harmon?
Yeah. This class is interesting. Just to make a quick point about the group overall, that I do think there's a glut of really interesting day 2 options. I don't think that Coleman or Roberts fit into that grouping. I think they are certainly day 3 guys at best. And in that regard, like, you're going to really need to stand out. And I would say that, like, Kevin Coleman as a slot player, which is what he was in the games I've looked at Missouri and what he probably is at the NFL level, improving from 4.49 to 4.41 definitely makes you a little bit interesting because he's got something to him when he gets the ball in his hands. I think there did look like more 4.4 speed as opposed to 4.5 speed to me on the film. So that's nice to see. You're right, probably a little bit of home cooking there, but when he can just really just sink into the middle of the field and get like a ball accurately and on time, he could definitely do something with it when he gets the ball in his hand. So that was nice to see there. You want to see a little bit of improvement from the 40-time perspective. Roberts, on the other hand, is a much different physical specimen. He's like 6'3", over 200 pounds. Running a 4.6 is just like, forget about it. Okay, like you said, that is a screaming red flag. I think he's got more flexibility to him than straight line speed, so that's not necessarily the most surprising thing in the world. But we know if you're this type of guy who's going to go on day 3, if you're ever going to have a shot to get some time with the offense, you're also going to have to be a special teamer. And that means running down punts, running down kicks, and like, guess what? It's more exciting to do that at 4.56 than at 4.64. So not to just immediately be like, hey, this guy's a special teamer over the course of his career. That is more important if he's going to then get to show some of what I do think is some pretty decent flexibility at that size from a route running perspective, from an offensive standpoint. The first thing you got to do is make the football team. And if we're just asking you to run in a straight line down the field and track down a kick returner, it's better to do that at 4.56 than 4.64.
Hey, speed does matter at special teams. It's a lot. The 40 got invented because you're running 40 yards on a punt. And that's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
People
gunner.
Always like, hey, how often is a receiver running in 40 yards of straight? When they're playing special teams, that's when they're doing it.
And kickoff, well, no, kickoff's not so much because they're shortened, but still, you got to run in a straight line and you got to do it very dynamically. Yep. So, no, that's a great point, though. That when you talk about, especially day 3, that is as much of a player's profile as what they can do on offense or defense is. Can you contribute on special teams and then earn the right to be a starter or a role player, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're drafted round 4 or later, some round 1 on some teams. Brian Burns was running down on punts. Brian Burns, you heard that correctly. That's not a receiver. That's an edge. Was running down on punts as a rookie edge player for the Panthers. Like that, and he's not the only one I could think of that's done that. So it's a great point to make, especially with these two guys. The last player that had a little pro day boost that we are going to talk about with NFL IQ, Dalen Everett, corner from Georgia. Yes, a defensive player from Georgia. Ever heard of him? He ran a sub 4.4, a 4.38 40 at 6'1 1/4, 196 pounds. Also has really good length, 31 7/8. Also almost beating that Legion of Boom 32-inch threshold. Posted a good vert at 37.5, so he's got explosiveness. But again, a corner that has started a lot of games in the SEC on a high-end defense like Georgia. He started 14, 28. He's started he's almost started 40 games, over 40 games in the SEC at corner on a good defense. That already tells you something before you get to the testing. Tests like a great athlete. That is also going to help him out because with a guy like this, why isn't he talked about as maybe a higher pick is because some of the inconsistencies never kind of kept ascending as a player. Kind of Georgia's defense this year kind of felt like that anyways. But at least watching him, to me, is like a round 3, round 4 guy, but still a guy that this helps his case. He already has the length. He has the athleticism. It's not just assumed. And in a corner class that has a lot of guys that are more watch the tape guys than, oh, easy, look at their combine testing, this guy's going to be a freak on day 1 or day 2. Guys that actually have these athletic traits, they are going to get some bump and get some appeal. He could maybe even bump inside at slot, which again adds to his appeal because now he shows the size and the athleticism to do so. So Everett, this corner more than most positions, this athleticism testing matters so much, especially if you're going to take a guy a little bit higher. And by a little bit higher, I mean before pick 120. And I think Everett, this just adds to his appeal that he's not just some big stiff. And then maybe it's like, okay, maybe he just got a little bit, just never took that next step, but at least this is going to be appeal for the athleticism testing. But I think that's what we got, Matt. We got a tackle in there, offensive lineman in there, I'll say. We got running back, we got tight end, we got a corner. couple receivers. But thanks again to NFL IQ, powered by Amazon Quick. You can use AI to answer all your NFL draft questions, just like we did right here, to see who some of these risers are after the combine, as these players go through their pro days at their colleges, or other colleges too, if they're a smaller school guy. But make sure to visit NFL.com/IQ. Tons of great stuff there. It's very powerful. So really, just as much as your imagination can go, like how in depth do you want to get with some decision makers? How in depth do you want to get some of these players, where they've gone in the past, some of these archetypes, et cetera, et cetera. Very good stuff from NFL IQ. So make sure to go check that out. All right, we are back with some more offensive line prospects. We're going to get to kind of round out tackles. I had the big guy watch. We already knocked off 7 of them. And then we got maybe 2-3 more here, and then we'll get into guards. Sorry, centers. Maybe we can just do a little addendum at the end there. But let's get to the next tackle here. Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern. Tall drink of water. 6'7" and 5/8, 323. 9-inch hands, not the longest arms, 32 3/8 at his pro day. Caleb Tiernan, though, started a lot of games, got a lot of experience. I actually really thought the tape against Penn State was encouraging. I don't know if you watched that one, but what'd you think about Tiernan before I kind of get into my thoughts?
Well, I'm glad you circled back, because I like Tiernan. I'm glad you put him on my list. He reminds me of the player your Uncle John coached at Army, and who ended up going to the pros and becoming quite a good offensive lineman. He even made the Pro Bowl one year, Alejandro Villanueva. You know, he's a 6'9" guy that played 2014 and 220 for the Steelers. Honest to God, I looked at the film, and that's who I thought of after 2 plays. And I think this player is smart. He knows how to use his length. He plays on his feet. Of course, I'm talking about Tiernan, and I'm not talking about Ali, as what his nickname is. I'm not talking about Ali. I'm talking about Tiernan. He gets off the ball quickly. You could tell he's played a lot of football. He's got good technique. He understands his length. He understands where it looks like where it could be a problem to him. So a good change of direction. He's athletic. He can recover. Good use of his hands. There's a lot to like about this tackle at some point in the draft. Now, I don't know what that point is. I have a 2nd-round grade on him, but I became fond of this player. I'm glad you put him on my list.
Yeah, he's one that grew on me too, because he's a funky build with the kind of long, tall, shortish arms, I should say. Technician. I thought sometimes in the run game, he can kind of get the defenders can kind of do the stack and shed on him a little too much. That kind of cooled me a little. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. But the game is turned into, keep the guy off the quarterback and let him throw the ball. And so if his best thing he does is play left tackle and pass protect, then again, run the ball the other way and figure it out later,
When it's 3rd and 2, go to the right. We're good.
Yeah, go to the right. Go over there.
Let's just do that. But if we want, but you don't have to give chip help. We can live that way. That's as valuable as it gets.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a poor man's. He's a poor man's Freeling.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tall, light feet, has a little bit more pop to him than you would expect. I said he has good hands, knows how to feign. He likes to do the little fake hands to get a guy reach in, and then he's got some technician to him.
He grows
on top of just being a giant. He does grow on you. I have a 2nd-round grade on him. He's gigantic. Literally grows. He's so big.
So
when I watch these guys. You watch these guys on Big Ten, and they feel okay, but then I watch them when they have to play at a lesser school, and they look some of these guys are massive. There's another guy we're about to talk about that I was shocked how big he was when he measured it.
And unfortunately, with tall guys, it actually, and I remember looking at this over the years with these tall guys and not playing against the better competition all the time, you develop bad habits playing against little guys. You just because you think you're crushing them, so you don't use you are crushing them, so you're not using your great technique all the time. Then all of a sudden you got to play an elite guy, and it's like, oh man, I was playing smaller guys for 3 weeks. This is a real man.
Or oh my God, I actually have to recover against a move. Like, what is this?
Yeah,
like, right. I'm used to just washing. How many times do you see that giant tackle in college just wash a guy out because they're just so much bigger than them? They just wash them out. Yeah, they don't do anything.
Hard to get around. I mean, the guys you asked me to grade and the guys that are in the elite class this year, like I said early in the start, there's so many tall guys. It's just amazing how big they're getting.
It's remarkable.
And how athletic they are. And it's the kind of guys, like you said, the kind of guys I used to like to coach. But who wouldn't?
Yeah, that's a big, you observed it, but this is a big thing going on in the NFL, just like a macro view. Defenses are getting smaller and offensive linemen are getting bigger. Like they are like by average. The last two, I think, draft classes, it was the biggest offensive line class at the combine. And then 2025, it was even bigger. I'm not sure what 2026 measured in, but this is kind of a general thing. Is everyone just focuses on quarterbacks and quarterback training.
It's got to be bigger.
Yeah, this is a real thing happening. Is O-linemen are getting bigger because they're okay. Let's just get the big guys there, and we get the more athletes. We keep them at 260 on defense, at D end and D tackle, and that. So yeah, there's a lot of focus on 7-on-7 and QB coaches and all that. And the other positions are getting this focus now too, O-lineman included. So you got kids in high school doing camp stuff they never even thought of back in the day. Back in the day, these kids were just playing basketball and it's just like, all right, roll the ball out. Let's run the ball a couple times. They weren't working on kick sets or anything. And now you got all these camps. So you see just different types and maybe just bigger guys that know what they're doing a little bit better. I would always say that to you too, or you always said it. I remember you complaining years ago. You just said none of these guys know how to use their hands. And you're talking about guys coming from college to the NFL. Do you think it's improved, or you think that's still an issue?
Well, there's different schools of thought. There's the forklift technique for when you come up from underneath, and then there's what I call the Jim Hannafin and the Chuck Knox technique, where you come over the top and throw your hands high hands. Yeah. That's all I heard for years and years and years. I think these taller guys would be better served throwing their hands over the top, because now they can play a game of chicken fighting, and they just can shield these guys, because already we're writing on about 4 or 5 guys. Wow, they're so big, they're hard to get around. Well, imagine if they were able to use their hands to their advantage, their arm length to their advantage, and keep the defenders away from them. They're just going to be elite pass protectors in the National Football League. So, but like we're talking about here, the guys are so big. They're so big and so athletic.
Yeah. In baseball now, most batters sit for the high fastball and adjust to lower stuff, which is a little different than what it used to be. It's kind of the same thing. Start high and you can adjust low. No, just my cross-pollination right there. Let's get to another big guy. I think I like him a little more than you, so I was curious to talk about him. This is Austin Barber from Florida. A lot of experience starting both sides of the ball, left and right tackle. This is the guy when I referred to when I said was measured in bigger than I expected, because I thought he was such a solid mover. But he was 6'6" and 7/8, so 6'7", 318, ran at 5'12", almost 34-inch arms, 33 or 3/4. Good length, has battled some injury stuff in his career as well, but has been banged up. But I don't know. I've liked him. I kept him in my top 50. Well, I think I'm one of the higher guys on him. I thought he had some good quickness, had some decent technique stuff as well. I called him just a consistent player because he's been on my radar for a while. Has light feet. He does a lot of stuff well, but nothing overwhelming. But I kind of kept him in that middle second round range, late second round grade. But what do you think about Austin Barber from Florida?
I have the same grade on him, and then let me be honest here. I only did one game on him because I didn't get a chance to circle back to him because I ran out of time. But I did say two things. Guys. He's one of my 14 guys I told you I'd love to coach. Unfortunately for him, when I graded him, against Ole Miss, and he had that big elbow brace on, that big arm brace, and it looked like he was in a lot of hurt. So I had on my notes to go back to an earlier game in the season and see how he plays with 2 arms, because I thought he played the Ole Miss game really, really well. I'm looking at my notes, and he had a lot of good things. But the only negative I would say is not using both hands. But meanwhile, he had a brace on that it looked like he had some type of major or severe injury that wasn't just pain, it was an injury. I didn't circle back around, and I probably won't after we get done with this show. But I'd be interested to look at an earlier game and see how he used his hands. Because that was one of the things he didn't do as really well. Doesn't throw his hands. And then I say, but he has a huge elbow brace on. So I think there's an injury there when I watched him. And I try to watch him against good teams. So I watched him against Ole Miss, and I didn't get back to a second game. So I'm sure he's, and again, I have him ranked right below that group we just talked about. And so I have him in a second round grade, which is not a bad thing.
No, that's I think we have him graded the same. He's had a multitude of injuries, nothing like overwhelming, but stuff. He has ankle and left shoulder injuries as a sophomore. Then he had a shoulder surgery after that. So that for spring, so he's probably always had just something, it seems like, with his elbows and arms and shoulders and whatnot. And I think that's hindered him a little bit. I don't know. He's a guy that like there's not a lot of bad, and those kind of guys grow on me, where if I were doing a highlight, low light kind of cut up, the low lights won't be a lot, but the highlights might not be a ton. There's a lot of in the middle, kind of like, okay, good block. Okay, good block there. Okay, so that was solid. All right, you didn't get out of whack there. I thought you can recover decent enough. He has a basketball background. There's nothing got me over the top with him, but nothing made me knock him. So I've always just kind of kept him in my top 50 throughout this process.
Yeah, and part of those injuries might be because of his aggressive style. Some of those injuries, Nate, could be because of the aggressive style of his play. And so, but there's the old thing, you get worried about it. You say once hurt, always hurt. So, if this guy has a slew of injuries, and I don't see the medical reports, I just watched it in tape. So, but the slew of injuries kind of scares you a little bit, but I didn't rank my player based on a slew of injuries. So I gave him a mid-second, early third round grade. So, yeah.
He had a lot of penalties in college. That would be a negative too. And that probably is going with what you said, aggressive, maybe after a snap of the ball. Okay, those are those two tackles. And then maybe I'm going to get to the last guy who played tackle, but maybe should bump inside. That's Cage Casey from Boise State. You mentioned that there's maybe 15 guys you watched and 14 you like to coach. Is this the one that didn't make the list?
And for one reason that stands out, he's on the ground too much. There's too much whiffing. There's too much head ducking. It's just, I don't like guys that are on the ground unless you're cutting. And nowadays, like we said earlier, they don't cut much anymore because of injuries. He does have some athleticism to him. He did struggle with speed, though. So as athletic as he seems to be, why are you on the ground all the time if you're athletic? And are you overly aggressive? You have to look at that too, because sometimes you're trying to kill a guy, and that's the time where you should use finesse. So that could be just a type of technique you need to get in his brain. You don't got to kill a guy right here. Just get your body in front of him. So but he does have some athleticism to him. And when I say he's good to the second level, that's talking about athleticism, good change of direction. But again, I felt like he was more of a catcher and not a striker. And I saw too many plays in the two games I watched that he was on the ground.
Yeah.
So I gave him a third round grade, which is not a bad grade.
That's where I have him. I think he has to bump inside. That's where kind of my final assessment of him. I thought the same thing. I think he was, I don't mean it's sloppy in a way to talk about what he's built like, but sloppy in his play sometimes. And I think that's what you're talking about on the ground. Just stuff, it just gets out over himself, gets penalties, kind of just has that just kind of worries me a little bit. I threw him in here because the consensus is kind of bumping him up a little bit, but I have a third, fourth round grade on him. Like, might sneak into my top 100, but that's where I kind of consider him kind of like a borderline top 100 player. But he was the last one I threw onto you. I kind of regret. There's a couple more I should have given you, but Travis Burke from Memphis, who I liked, I have a third round grade. I did not send him to you, but this is another guy that, spoilers, will be in my top 100. And Markel Bell from Miami, another behemoth type. That will maybe get into my top 100, but that's the other two tackles. Let's get to guards, though. Next up, this is the kind of consensus top guard, Vega Ione, guard from Penn State. I liked but didn't love I'll just get my spoilers out about him. I had him in my 20s on my last big board. He'll probably sit there for me. That's more sometimes positional versatility. Guys that are guard only, and I don't consider an overwhelming, amazing guard, more good. You're kind of going to get dinged a little bit. Slot receivers kind of get dinged for me like that. Slot only DBs, nickel guys get dinged like that for me. Just my process. But Vega Ione, Penn State, multi-year starter. What did you think of him, Dad?
Yeah, I think he's from Graham, Washington, to be honest with you. So he's a left guard. I liked him. I actually have in a circle next to his name, I like him. I think he missed a game or two. In fact, the first game I went to look at, he didn't play. So he had an injury or something this year. I was able to watch him against Indiana. He's aggressive. But he doesn't use his hands in the run game. He's a shoulder guy. He likes to use his shoulders and use his size. I mean, he's 320 pounds, so he can move the pile. He does a nice job of getting to second level. He's a good finisher. There's really a lot to like about him. He can root out defensive tackles on drive blocks at the point of attack. He can flip his hips on the backside, which shows some, athleticism and some flexibility. That meaning he can gain leverage by flipping his hips, and that's hard to do for a big man. He uses his hands. There's a lot to like about him, Nate. A good finisher. He can sit down on bull rush. I don't have a lot of negative on him. He was one of my top guards, but not the top. But he's a good player, and like you said, he's a guard. And he played left guard, which shows is good. Usually, now I don't know if that still holds true, you put your best athlete at left guard, i.e. Randall McDaniel. And so I like this player, and I like him a lot, and I think he's a first-round pick.
Do you have a preferred maybe way to use him? Do you think he's more of an at-you gap duo guy? Do you think he's a zone guy? Or
I think he's a zone guy. I think he's a zone guy, Nate, because he's a good finisher. He has good balance. He's got enough footwork to get to those linebackers and stay on them, which you have to do. And because I said, again, a couple of times in here, he can flip his hips, so he shows that he can, turn back on a linebacker that maybe runs underneath him. I say he's got good vision, and he's aggressive, and he's active, and he's really good on his short pulls. And believe it or not, I wrote, and he's nifty on his short pulls, which we were just talking about a couple players ago, with their ability to, bubble around penetration, or a guy that got stalemated in the hole and you got to bubble around and make that play go to the outside. He shows the ability to do that. So I like this player. I moved him ahead of one of the tackles we talked about earlier, as far as when we talk about stacking the board.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. He kind of is. I have him in the same group as kind of like maybe the first 7 tackles we talked about. Like I kind of have him with the 5, 6, 7 guys as far as when I look at the big board.
I do too. I do too.
Okay, I think so too. Yeah, we could talk about kind of the overall rankings kind of when we wrap up and put a bow on it. But no, I thought he improved a lot with how he lost weight. And I think this is a part of it, is he improved a lot when he got to the second level and adjusting. I'm glad you highlighted that, because I didn't think that was a strength before. And I thought his quickness and his balance were much improved this year in adjusting to moving targets in space, which is exactly what you're talking about. I think he can fit in either type of defense. And I'm glad you talked about flipping his hips, because I thought that was a surprising trait of his, was how good he was on cutoffs. And you were talking about second level flipping, but once he got his head across on guys and then be able to get leverage on them and sustain his leverage, that was really encouraging to me. Because when you look at him, he's a big dude. I'm like, power blocker. But, I'm stereotyping him, and then I watch him. I'm like, ooh, I actually kind of like how you move. I hate that offense, but I liked watching him.
He moves well, and believe it or not, for a guy this big, I did write the magic word. I wrote he's nifty. So he is nifty. And he's going to be able to pull. Nimble. And he's going to be able to get out on those wide receiver screens and all the things that they're doing in the NFL now. And, he's an excellent player. And the first couple of guards are pretty doggone good.
Let's get to the next one, because this is a guy that he'll end up in my maybe top 40, but for sure top 50. This is Chase Besantis from Texas A&M, a Jersey boy that goes to Texas A&M. Don't usually get that pipeline. Jersey to College Station. Don't usually get that one, but he was. And I mean, this guy, I think, has grown on a lot of people, including myself. I'll just get my quick notes because I'm very curious what you think, but I thought he could really explode out of his stance. He can readjust his blocks with some real pop on delivery, light on his feet as a puller. He adjusts well on the second level, can get upright as a pass protector because that can cause his footwork and balance to unravel, lacks ideal length. But I'm very curious what you thought of Chase Besantis from Texas A&M guard.
Well, I love this player. He's my top inside player. I have him and Looney stacked right on top of each other and ahead of that last tackle we talked about. I think these two players are going to help some team win and be able to do a lot of things. This guy has a lot of good things, man. And I didn't know he was from Jersey, but his style of play merits that he's from Jersey. So he is the best. He's the best finisher, and the only guy that I have on my notes that says looks for work. So I'm big on that. He's always looking to block somebody. So he's been taught very well. So he's always looking to hit somebody during the play. He never stands around watching like some others we talked about earlier. He's aggressive. He fires his feet in the run game. He plays on his feet. He's strong. He's got great finish, good COD. He looks for work. He plays with his hands. He can sit down. He sticks and I don't know where to stop. I mean, I love this player, and I don't even know if I have him ranked high enough, but I certainly have him in the first round. And he's going to help someone win and bring an attitude to that football team that he goes to, that his type of play, from my experience, becomes contagious to the room and becomes contagious to the big room. You know, not just the O-line room, but to the big room. And this is the kind of player you want. And I even wrote, which is a good thing, when he's pulling, he's nifty. He's got the magic word next to him. So he's athletic enough to get around these and on the pulls. He can flip his hips. He can sit on bulls. He will overset and get too flat once in a while, but that happens. Guys try to jump the three techniques, one or two wide, and that's really a mistake they make, and then the guy comes up the field and they're beat. But that's just a technique thing where you lose a little ground and set out a 45. But I don't see a lot of negative in his game. I'm sure there's more if I watch a few more games, but plays with great effort, Nate. I like this player a lot. Obviously, I do. I like him a real lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's it makes sense. Steve Adazio was his O-line coach. That actually makes a little more sense now. How he came over from the East Coast, but he played right tackle as well as a freshman. So there is some of that. I don't think he can do that, but it's notable that he was not just always guard only in college. He grew on me more than probably anyone else as a guy that I maybe earmarked. And then I watched last month after kind of like as I was doing my next big board. And I like how you say brings attitude, but it's not that obnoxious fake stuff. It's real blocking. It's real finishing. It's real stuff to him.
Real finding work. Cool when I say find work, that means he's looking for someone to hit,
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like, okay, I'm clean. All right, let's find a guy in space. All right, let's pull to this guy. There's a lot I think to like about him. I'm pleasantly surprised how high you even have him, because I was just curious maybe some of the stuff, because I think he's an easy athlete. I just like his pop. That's why I like his pop. Like he explodes out of his stance and he explodes on his blocks. And I think even though he doesn't have the longest arms, he sustains well enough because of his athleticism. I think some of the pass pro stuff is more just stance, and I think you can fix that because he can bend. So very encouraged to hear that you liked him as much as you did. And I'm very curious too, once we get into the final stack. But Emmanuel Pregnon is the next guard to talk about from Oregon. I think another guy, I have maybe just a half or kind of the same tier as actually Basantis, but below. But Emmanuel Pregnon, good looking guy, big, square chested, broad shoulders, maybe skips a leg day once in a while. At least that's how I view him, and that's how he plays like. But what do you think about Pregnon?
I like him. I like him a tier below the first two we talked about. So I have a second round grade on him.
Yep.
And I like a lot of stuff. He can flip his hips as well. He toes out a little bit, which scares me a little bit. But so that means, for me, that means he's not a good athlete as some of the other guys we've talked about. But he is athletic. He can do a lot of things well. He can sink his hips. He can change direction. He can root out defensive tackles in the run game. He uses his hands in the Pro Bowl. In Pass Pro. Not yet, buddy. I'm not anointing you to the Pro Bowl. So he can redirect, Nate. He's got good lateral redirect. He throws his hand. There's a lot to like about him, but for some reason, his style of play has me ranking him third in this group of real guards, not the ones that you're talking about maybe moving from tackle. I had him third, but not too much below. I just, guards are harder to pick in the first round, so I have two in the first round and him and actually three others in the second round. So it's a good year for guards. I mean, it's deep.
Yeah. It is. I liked him, and again, just like you, couldn't get over the top because he's guard only. I liked how he could latch on guys and use his length, but again, another guy gets caught playing high a little too much. And I made the joke, but I think he could add some lower body mass. But this is where I'll get to the negative side of this because I do like him. Again, he made my top 50. I think I had him 44. But with Pregnon, he's 24 already, so he's older. And so it's one of those things where, and I think Oregon's O-line coach is pretty good. You complimented what he did last year with Josh Connerly, which we'll talk about right at the very end. But okay, you have those issues and you already got some decent coaching and you're a 6th-year senior. That narratively scouting, as I like to put it, that kind of is a knock, at least when I watch him. But 11-inch hands, 34 1/8 arms. He's big and long. 6'4 3/8, 314. The other guy's Basantis, by the way, 6'5, 315, ran well. 32-inch arms actually as pro day. He's younger. He's 21. He's 3 years younger than Pregnon, which matters when we're talking about development of these guys. And then Ione, it's kind of in the middle. He's 22, 6'4, 320, 10.5-inch hands, decent arms as well, 32 3/4. But just the different flavors of these three. And I once I'm doing my final big board, which comes out next week, I kind of have these guys stacked similar to you. I probably have Ione just a little bit higher than Basantis, but then Basantis and Pregnon, I have stacked the same. I think Basantis is kind of that early second grade for me, true second grade, round grade. And then Pregnon's that late second grade. But I kind of see him the same way as you do. But these are kind of the top 3 guards for me. But I did have you watch a couple more because I couldn't help myself, and I kept giving you guys to watch. So let's get to Kalen Rutledge.
The one thing I would say about Pregnon, excuse me, Nate, is if I had one negative thing, because everything I have is good, is he's a little bit plays with a little bit too wide of a base, which is something that they can fix. It's either that or he doesn't have enough flexibility to tighten up his stance, his base, and bend. And then that goal goes back to that he toes out. I mean, I'm not a physiologist or anything, but I know I didn't have a lot of great players that played for me that toed out.
All right. I know I never end up like just really liking him. I was like, okay, I think I know what you are. And I only can get so high with that profile he has. There's not enough dominance. He's older. There's not the true high-end strength or true high-end athleticism to just kind of like buy into. So that's why I think, again, we're speaking the same language on him. Where Basantis, it was a little more encouraging to see what he was and was not getting away with and how he moves. And I think that's just a little bit more, Basantis looked more natural. I don't know how to describe it as a mover, where Pregnon, everything looks, like Pregnon looks a little, I wouldn't say rigid, but just like, I can see the drills that he's trying to accomplish when he's playing, if that makes sense. It's like he's carrying over drill work, but robotic, very robotic. Yeah. That's yeah. There's a quarterback in this class, Penn State's quarterback that's like that, Drew Oliver. Just so robotic. All right, we'll get to the last two guys here. Kind of cut from the same cloth. Kalen Rutledge, guard from Georgia Tech. Another guy, spoilers, have a 3rd round grade on him. I thought he was light on his feet. I thought he was really good on backside cutoff blocks. I thought that was his strength of his game. Needs to develop more lower body strength as well to sustain top heavy build. Could play a little bit upright and get off balance, but he has good length, good hand or big hands as well. What'd you think about Kalen Rutledge from Georgia Tech?
I liked him. I gave him a 2nd round grade. First of all, his head coach is an offensive line coach. So it stands out. It stands out to me like another player we talked about previously, who was head coach, was an offensive line guy. I can't remember what team. I'm old, but this guy has
Miami, Cristobal.
Oh yeah, Miami, right there you go. Yeah, that's because we started with him, so I can't remember that far back. It's been 3 hours.
Because that was 4 hours ago.
Yeah, 4 hours ago. So this guy plays with good technique, and you could tell he's the influence of the head coach. He does a lot of good things technique-wise. So technique is not going to be where you worry about him. What you're going to worry about him is he have enough strength. I know he's 6'4", 316. I wish he'd play a little bit bigger maybe, but good quickness, good COD, plays with high hands. Like I said, his coaching stuff is good. He can flip his hips, real good to the 2nd level. Now, when I say real good to the 2nd level, Nate, that means that not only do they get through off the combo block to the 2nd level, they block their guy. That means they're nifty enough to get that linebacker who is going to juke them and do whatever, deke them, and they can maintain contact. And so when I see a play where a guy goes through and sticks and stays, I say good to the 2nd level. He's a good short puller, too. He's a real good short puller. He makes excellent decisions when he's pulling, when to go up, when to turn it up, when to go around, when to bubble. I like this player. A good stick and stay guy too, Nate. So he has a lot of upside. Like I said, I gave him a 2nd round grade. That might be a little too high, but based on the quality of the guard class, I think these are 4 real good guards we've talked about so far, and I think we're getting ready to talk about a conversion guy, right? So
yes, on the last one, yeah, Rutledge.
Yeah.
Rutledge, to me, he didn't make my top 50, but he made my top 60. I know that's splitting hairs, but we're talking about the same grade and everything. But I think that's why I kind of emphasize for the 50th time, though, is that, we're doing an O-line show, so of course we're going to highlight it, but it's a good O-line class, and a lot of the other positions are not this deep and don't have the talent, and so that's why I just kind of keep emphasizing there might be this many guys going this
when
early.
When we started out and we started talking about the 1st round guys, and then now all of a sudden you're in the 2nd round, you're still talking about these quality guys. It just shows you how deep this class is going to be, and there's probably guys that we haven't talked about that are merit being talked about in the 2nd round as well,
Yeah, we'll talk about the last guy of the list I gave you, and I'll just give a couple more for people listening, just like you want to do a little extra credit for yourself. I'm going to give you kind of one-off thoughts on that. Next one is Gennings Dunker. It's quite the name, from Iowa. But this is a guy that, so you hinted at maybe a conversion bumping into guard. But what'd you think about Dunker from Iowa, which is usually pumps out lineman after lineman? They have a center in this class as well.
Yeah, typical for me type Iowa offensive lineman, big tough guy,
Ferentz guy,
not a really good athlete. He doesn't get back in his stance. He's almost looks like he's nervous to get far away from the defender because of his lack of athleticism. He's a forklifter. He's a wrestler. What I mean is, he wrestles with guys. He doesn't strike them. He latches on and then wrestles. He doesn't strike anybody.
Yeah, tries to steer them.
And if you think about it, we've just done 15 guys we did Cage Casey too, didn't we? We did 15 or 14 guys, and he's the first guy I said's a wrestler. Ironically, and he goes to Iowa. So he loses his base. He loses his base quite a bit. He's not nifty. He's on the ground. He's not sure in his sets. I've already mentioned that. He has trouble redirecting. With all of that said, all of these negative things, and he's playing right tackle, I think if you slid him inside, his athleticism or lack thereof wouldn't show up as much, but his grit and his determination and his desire for contact, as most Iowa guys are, I think would be better served inside, where his athleticism wouldn't show up when he's on the island, or excuse me, his lack of athleticism. But, he's someone to like. And again, as I'm talking about the other guys. I just changed my grade in my head to a late 2, early 3. So
I know. I thought you were talking to that. I know.
It's like maybe he should have been a 3 before I started talking after seeing all these negative comments.
I had that moment with Charles. We were talking about corners, and there's a guy named Colton Hood from Tennessee, and all I was doing was praising him, talking about how much I like him, and then I had to get to the negatives. And I was like, I don't have to as much as I thought. I should get him higher on my board, shouldn't I? Like, kind of, once you talk it out, you kind of hear yourself saying it. But he has an interesting background. Yeah, like you said, Iowa guy, classic small school Iowa guy that Ferentz finds. He did track and field. He did, looks like he did shot put and discus, classic. Was a wrestler, classic.
Got a mullet.
He hit a late gross. Pardon? Got a mullet.
He's got.
Classic. Surprisingly, doesn't wear number 69 like every offensive lineman with a mullet likes to do. He weighed only 180 as a freshman. This is Dane Brugger had these notes, but it had a size 17 shoe.
Wow.
As a freshman in high school. So I think Kirk Ferentz looked at the shoes and go, I think you'll grow a little bit. And he was right. But I'm with you. Sorry.
Nate, for some history on that shoe thing, that was the old Woody Hayes line. When Woody Hayes would have the high school player in his office, he would ask him, the first question he would ask is, what size shoe do you wear? And that would tell him how much growth this kid still had left in him. So that's an old Woody Hayes-ism. For those that don't know, Woody Hayes, he was the legendary coach of Ohio State.
Just don't be an opposing player on his sideline. That would be my only piece of advice with Woody Hayes. He might throw a punch at you. You're one of your questions you always ask the last game, right?
Yeah.
One of the questions you would always ask too is, do you have any athletes in the family? Like, do you have any siblings that play sports? I always thought that was a great question too. But that's something that always comes up too.
Yeah, you're always looking to see if there's DNA, and sometimes you could tell by just looking at people that they're athletic, but sometimes you can't. So you want to hear their history of, did your mom play high school sports, your dad, your sister, you have any sisters that play? And then all of a sudden when somebody starts whipping off players, I'm trying to think of a young player that I was talking to somebody about, and their parents were star players at Utah or BYU, and his mom was like an all-conference basketball player. And I think the dad said, well, what about me? And they said, well, you weren't all-conference. Your wife was. So, but the coach was talking about
we got to rank these guys.
Yeah, the coach was talking about the DNA in the family and how important that is. Yeah. If you come from an athletic family, there's a chance that you're going to have athletic kids. So,
it's very true, though. I mean, that's Fano, we just even talked about. I believe his whole family is super, super athletic. He has a whole bunch of uncles that played. His brother is a DN at Utah who's in this class. His sister played college basketball. His younger brother is a 4-star tackle recruit. He has 4 uncles who played in the NFL. So, there's some pedigree, I think is a good way to put it. Pedigree there,
some more things to add to his list of can't miss.
Can't miss. I know. I'm the low. I keep talking to people. I'm the low guy on him, and I have him as a top 15 guy. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's like I just have more questions, but I still really like him because it's kind of hard to pass on what the package that he has. So we're gonna get into your final stack board, including the guards. I will bring up those last kind of guys of note in case you want to do some extra credit here. I mentioned Burke from Memphis. I encourage people to check him out. He's pretty good. I kind of regret not sending him to you. Markel Bell from Miami. Jalen Farmer, guard from Kentucky, kind of a mauler, basher type. And then at center, because like I said, a lot of good centers in this class, mostly third round, fourth round types. Jake Slaughter from Florida is the guy I can stack up the highest. You got Sam Heck from Kansas State. I like him in zone schemes. Logan Jones from Iowa. Connor Liu from Auburn, got good size, kind of keeps getting banged up. And then Trey Zunn from Texas A&M, who's also just a hard-working center type. But a decent center class, but just to kind of pile on. So really how deep this offensive line class is, I think was going to surprise some people. Might bore some people watching the draft, but it shouldn't. This is how you win football games, people. But no, that's a pretty good class there. We're going to talk about your final rankings here. Do you want to list them off? I have them here, but do you want to list them off? We made a pretty little graphic for you too. Guards are included with the tackles here. You had Monroe Freeling at 1, Mauigoa at 2, Spencer Fano at 3, Max, God, I always want to say Hennichor at 4. You have Blake Miller at 5, Chase Pasantis at 6. So you're getting to these 2 guards. Pasantis at 6, Ione at 7. You had Caleb Lomu at 8. And so I would consider those guys as your maybe first round types or top 30. It's arbitrary, but more of your first rounders, I think, is that group right there. Then we get into Caden Proctor at 9, Caleb Tiernan at 10, Manuel Pregnon at 11, Kalen Rutledge at 12, Austin Barber at 13. And then we got Dunker at 14. And all those guys you consider late second, early third, or better. So in kind of, again, arbitrary terms, top 60-ish guys would be including with that. And then Casey as your last guy, more of a, but still you even said as a round 3-ish guy, top 100-ish guy.
Which is not bad.
Not bad. And that's not even including the couple other guys I could throw in there. That's 50. We'll call it 18 to 20. Be on the lookout for in the first 2 days of the draft until we get into the weird territory of day 3 where only I care about it. And I'm doing the show and I'm hooting and hollering about a 5th round pick or, some quarterback from Minnesota Moorhead I like goes in the 7th round. But Dad, thank you so much for joining me. This has become so much fun. I'm glad we get to do this. I know you did last year. You joined me on that. We already got your thoughts on Will Campbell. Do you want your OT one last year was Josh Carnley Jr., who went to Washington in the first round. One little one-liner on him.
One little one-liner. Josh Carnley was kind of thought of maybe not having a greatest season, but he gave up 8 sacks. And talking to Bobby Johnson, the former O-line coach for Washington, he had 6 sacks in the first 3 games. Okay, in the first 3 games, he played the Giants
gave him some
with
hell.
Burns, Thibodeau, and Carter. In the second game, they played the Packers with Rashawn Gary and Parsons. And in the third game, they played Mad Max and the Raiders. He gave up 6 sacks. He had a rough start to the season. He gave up 2 more sacks the rest of the year. I think Josh Carnley is going to be a great pro, and Bobby Johnson said he's tremendous in the classroom.
And he was, even when he was struggling pass pro wise, he was a plus run blocker. And I think by the end of the year, I'd even go plus, which very good. He's going to be a great.
He's going to be a great pro.
He is.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was your guy won last year. So that's why I'm glad we got kind of a liner on him. Last year's class was super interesting as well. And hopefully when we do this in a year, next year's class is pretty fun too, to kind of check back in on this. But Dad, thank you so much for doing this. I absolutely love this. Love you, of course. Do you want to plug your charity golf tournament before you get out of here?
Yeah, that would be great, Nate. So each July we have our one charity event for the foundation, the Mike Tice Foundation or the Tice Foundation. We have a celebrity golf tournament in Seattle. Our new website went out today. It's ticefoundation.org, and that'll pull up the website. It'll tell you everything about the history of the foundation. They'll update the celebrities weekly. You can donate, buy sponsorships, play golf, go to the dinner. It's all right there for you, and hopefully you'll support us. And we'll have a great list of celebrities when we're done with it, and when we start announcing in June, we'll have a great list of celebrities, and we have 12 already, and it's a lot of fun, but a lot of work, and we love it. We love it as a family, and we do a lot of good stuff for kids.
And you got some great items, memorabilia and auction-wise every single year. Variety pack, too. You'll get tickets for stuff. You get boxes of wine. You get visits. You used to offer a visit to you, which I think you should have been paying people, but
Hey, last year we had a go watch Beat Bobby Flay taping in New York City, and that was a big hit.
Yep.
And they got a VIP treatment at the taping of Beat Bobby Flay, and we had 2 F1 packages in Las Vegas. We had all kinds of stuff. So, Derby check it out. Like I said, TiceFoundation.org, and see if you're interested. And if not, just hit the donate button and donate some money.
We really appreciate it. It goes to Boys and Girls Clubs, amongst other spots. It's great there. I mean, multiple spots. It started in Nevada, and in northern Nevada, and it was great there. Moved it to Seattle, your old stomping grounds where I was born. And it's been a great event there for a few years now. So please, I encourage everyone to check that out. It goes for a great cause. And my dad over there, like he works so hard at it. Every message from him is from him. He's not having other people. He has people helping him, but he does a lot of this work because he's a control freak and he can't help himself. But I do think you put a lot of sweat into it, a lot of pride into it, and it's a great event. I think everyone that goes to it, your former teammates that go to it, are always just so taken aback by how cool it is and what an event, what a great cause it is. So I'm glad that you get to pump it out here because I think it is a great event. So love you, Dad. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon. I don't know when you travel everywhere now. You come out here to Vegas and you just drive over to Del Mar and Santa Anita and stuff. I don't even see you.
Hey, that's not true. You're such a liar. Who helped you move?
I know. I owe you and Mom about 7 dinners.
All right.
I know. All right. Well, thanks, Dad. I'm Nate Tice. Right. You can find me at Nate_Tice on social media. You can find the big guy, Mike Tice 86 on Twitter. If you want to check out his tweets, probably some horse racing or complaining about something. But no, make sure to check out all the stuff. Check out the Mike Tice Foundation, all the great stuff that he has going on over there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again to my dad for helping us. Subscribe, follow us, rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts, and also watch us on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe there as well. Thanks to Stone, Austin, Madison for making us look and sound good. Going through all 15 guys, but thank you so much for sticking with us. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. Thank you for Matt for joining us in that middle little section there as well. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time. Have a great weekend. I'll be back on Tuesday, by the way. Receiver preview. We got an O-line deep dive. Get ready for the receiver deep dive. Maybe 2 hours on that one too. But thank you all for joining us. See you guys next time.